All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Lynn Kinst. I'm the Executive Director of the Hemophilia Council of California. We want to welcome you to our Advocacy and Policy webinar. Tonight's topic is Speak My Language, Understanding Health Insurance.
So one thing I will say is there's questions that everyone should ask when they're choosing a health plan, and that includes you, because especially if you're getting family coverage, we always think about making sure our hemophilia is covered because that's big dollars, right? But look, we didn't plan on getting hemophilia either, right? So you need to make sure you're thinking about what are the other problems that maybe others in my family have. In my case, my ex-husband had really bad asthma and some other health issues. I had, high cholesterol. They say there's cost to all of those. Your children, maybe someone in the family has diabetes. You need to think about all of those things. So there's questions that everybody asks is how much does it cost? And when you're thinking about cost, remember, it's not just the premium, it's the deductibles, it's the copay and your co-insurance. Understanding what your maximum out of pocket is critical, because I'll give you a good example within the marketplace. If you go for a bronze plan and people will say, oh, I'm going to go for a bronze plan, it's pretty inexpensive. That's great, but your out of pocket is going to be the max that's allowed. And so that's much higher. Whereas if you're going in and you're going for a silver plan or a gold plan, silver plan, may have some lower out of pockets and lower maximum out of pockets. And the advantage to that plan is you may also be able to receive some extra assistance with out of pocket costs. So make sure when you think about cost, you're thinking all of those things that go into those costs. The other question is, what services are covered? Prescriptions, specialists, and the biggie, do I have out of network coverage? You don't want to find out you don't have that when you're in a situation where you're out of network. So then there's the questions that as a person with hemophilia, there's disease specific questions you should ask. Again, is my HCC in network? Is my factor product covered? It's great if they've got, you take a glance and you go, oh, there's 5 factor products covered or 2 factor products covered. If it's not your product, it doesn't help you. And then here's the question I was saying to you earlier when I said sometimes they don't allow you to get factor from the HCC. Factor is often covered in health plans in a couple of different ways. Again, back in the day, it was always a medical expense. There are some health plans who still cover it under major medical. There's been a pretty large shift to move it over and pay for it under pharmacy. And the reason for that is it's easier for them to track and easier for them to limit how many places you have to go to get it. And so again, that just helps them be able to hopefully bring the cost down by economies of scale. But what I will say is always ask when you call, because again, here's another one. If you verify, if you see on the preferred drug list that your factor's covered, call and confirm it. And write down the name of the person you talk to, the date, the time, all of that. But ask for them. How is factor covered for self-infusion in the home? And then ask, how is it covered if I'm in the hospital or require nursing assistance? The reason why that matters is oftentimes when you're in the hospital, it's covered under major medical. That matters to you because it may impact what your deductible is or what your copay is out of pocket at the time. If you're someone who is infusing at home, but you use a nursing service to help you and they're infusing, sometimes that also goes under major medical. It's important for you to know those things so that you know, again, what is your cost share going to be for that? Do I need a referral to see a specialist? Again, if they say no, ask them, can you tell me where it says that in my policy? And then you'll want to print that piece off, that section of your policy, attach it to your little notes. I always say keep a notebook somewhere that has, whenever you've called your insurance company, attach a copy of that to it, so that if you ever get questioned on that, you can go, nope, I talked to somebody on this day, you referred me to this, and here it is. Here's the policy you referred me to. The other thing is to understand what services require prior authorization. If you've been around for a few years, in the past, it used to be you only had to get your factor a prior authorization once at the beginning of the year, right? They would say, yep, you have, hemophilia A. Okay, you're going to need, factor 8. Here's your which product? Okay, here's your prior authorization for the year. Insurance companies have learned a lot more about, how factor is administered. They know that sometimes it changes based on your weight. They know that sometimes it changes based on your activity levels. So a lot of them now have asked for there to be prior authorizations twice a year or every quarter. In a few states, it's every single month. Why is that important for you? It's important for you because, look, we all get busy. We try these days not to let hemophilia control our lives. But, you get busy and all of a sudden you're on a Friday and you have a bleed and you're like, uh-oh, I only have one dose and I know I'm going to need more than this. You don't want to always be calling and having it being an emergency to get it out to you, because sometimes it can't get out to you, which may mean you end up in the ER for a little bit of time, and nobody likes to spend time doing that. So I talked to you about some additional trends that are out there that are going to be important for you to think about. And I know that Lindsay and folks in Lynn and folks in your state have been talking about the accumulator adjuster. I'm sure you've all heard about that. You've maybe heard a little less about accumulator maximizers. The other programs that you'll hear about are things like, especially if you're self-insured, we have provided for you a cost-saving healthcare solution. Sounds really good, but I'm going to explain to you why it's not. But these are the things you need to look for in your health plan. You need to see if there's any reference to an accumulator adjuster, a maximizer, a out-of-pocket protection program. They call them all these nice little names, but it's also important for you to ask the insurance provider, is the plan subject to an accumulator adjuster program? And we'll get to the next page to kind of give you a reminder of a little bit of what that is. And then we have some links for you to be able to go to. So the accumulator adjuster program is where you've got a manufacturer's copay card, you're using it every month. And then once that's used up, they come back to you and say, okay, now it's your turn to pay the out-of-pocket. We've reset your accumulator and it's time for you to pay your out-of-pocket, because they say an accumulator is the amount of money that you yourself pay towards your deductible or out-of-pocket maximum. It used to be that they allowed that copay card from the manufactured account. Many do not allow that anymore. Copay maximizers. This is a little different, but kind of the same general idea. An accumulator adjuster looks at what is the copay card. Let's say the copay card is $12,000. What they'll say is your out-of-pocket cost is going to be $1,000 a month. It's a way of spreading that out over the year so that you don't have to pay it all at once. And then they will take, the copay card to be able to do that. But if you don't get the copay assistance program and don't use that, then you actually get penalized under these situations, and you will have a much bigger cost share. Again, there are 2 links on here. One is a video to a explainer video on copay accumulators. The other is a webcast. Some of you may have heard Colette Culianos speak. She is the vice president of payer relations at NHF. And she did an excellent webcast along with a couple of people from the insurance industry to explain about all these different programs, about the copay accumulators, about the copay maximizers, and then this lovely program that is called, we call it the alternative funding program. Sometimes you'll hear it referred to in some instances as a medical tourism program. These programs are being utilized by self-insured employers. Again, they don't have to cover all of the essential health benefits. What happens is this is where they will exclude certain expensive specialty drugs. You'll get a notice of an employee that says, unfortunately, your specialty medication is no longer covered, but we've engaged a company to help you obtain your meds at a greatly reduced cost, and in some cases, even free. And I'm going to say to you, remember, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. So basically what they're doing, and this is where the tourism word comes in, is what they say to the employer, what these groups say to the employers, we are going to work with international pharmacies to obtain products. You know, we've all heard sometimes if you get products from overseas, it's less expensive. What I will tell you is there is a law that you are not allowed to import biologics into the US. So they're really not going to international pharmacies for that. They may be going for some of your other medications, but not for your factor. What they're doing most often is they are trying to get you registered on one of the manufacturer gap plans, which are for people who don't have access to health insurance or whose health insurance doesn't cover their drug. Now, if you don't qualify, as most of you may know, there is some financial eligibility requirements for these programs. If you don't qualify, then what they've told the employer is, if they don't qualify, you can grant them an exception and pay for this under the medical expense. When these first came out, that's what employers were doing. Now they're saying, no, we're not going to make any exceptions. So you could find yourself in a situation where you don't have coverage for your prescription drug. So again, please watch these videos, take a look at those. I'm going to give you a list of people you can call to ask questions.
Want to thank our sponsors as well, who make this webinar series possible. And just thank you again, Michelle, for joining us tonight, for all the great information. And thank you all for sticking with us as we went a little over tonight. I hope that you found it helpful. Please do reach out to the council if you have any follow-up questions regarding your individual situation. We will do our best to connect you with the right people who can assist. I can always reach out to Michelle, and then we have great relationships with the folks at NHF and HFA, and the links that we talked about tonight, we will be sure to send out in our follow-up email as well. And the video will be available after we do a little bit of editing. So also wanted to thank briefly or say congratulations to Angel and Liz. Those are the community members who won our raffle tonight. So we'll be reaching out to you guys about those gift cards. And again, thank you all for joining us. And thank you again, Michelle.
No problem. Thank you. Everybody
have a good night, everyone.